Before you watch this video, I just want to let you know that it contains spoilers. Now, getting back to the video, I don't know if this is just my opinion, but Squid Game Season 2 and Season 3 are the perfect example of why you shouldn't milk a show in every possible way, because it ends up turning into the biggest flop ever. It feels like we're watching Game of Thrones all over again. I believe that when Hwang said this would be the darkest season ever, he meant it literally, because he left us completely in the dark, with no satisfying answers to any of our questions. When I posted my first video about Squid Game, I shared how disappointed I was with Season 2. A lot of people in the comments said I was being too harsh and that I shouldn't compare it to Season 1, because Seasons 2 and 3 were meant to be watched together. But now, after watching Season 3, I honestly have no words. I'll definitely make more videos about the Squid Game finale, diving deeper into every subject, analyzing character decisions, explaining the ending, all of that. But this video is just a rant, where I'll quickly go over the main points. I think one of the main reasons so many of you like my content is because I'm genuinely honest about my opinions. There have been times when I realized I got something wrong and changed my mind. You all know my first thoughts about Junhee, but with all the new evidence, I realized I was wrong and accepted that she would give birth. Still, I always stand by my beliefs and say things as I see them, even if some of you might not agree. Maybe you liked how the show ended, but for me, it was a tragedy. The main problem is that I had so many expectations for this season. You can't even imagine. After spending the last 4 months deeply invested in this topic, after all the marketing Netflix did, after all the interviews from the actors hyping up the finale, and after Hwang's promise that this would be the darkest season ever, from all that, they delivered nothing. The second big problem is that they showed us way too much information before the season even aired. Too many trailers and teasers. For example, from the main trailer, we already knew that the 5th game would be jump rope. And while watching the show, we saw that during the maze game, Junhee fractured her ankle. I mean, come on, Netflix. You show us that the next game involves a lot of jumping, and then an episode before that, you show one of the main characters struggling to even walk properly? I think all of us, when we saw that scene, knew Junhee was going to die in the 5th game. If you've chosen this narrative, at least don't spoil the next game for us. It would have been so much more impactful if we didn't know what the next game was. And then, when the curtain rose for the VIPs, we'd all be shocked to realize that Junhee was going to die. But that's not the only issue. There are way too many problems with the characters. You spent all of Season 2 building them up, only to tear them down like it meant nothing. Min-soo becomes a drug addict. Myung-gi turns into a full-blown psychopath. Gi-hun is reduced to a mindless NPC. Junho's just some explorer now. And Daeho's entire backstory gets a 1-minute explanation. I was a fraud, never served in the Marines. I just wanted to be cool like you guys. That's it. Why even let Hyunju and Daeho survive the rebellion if you're going to kill them off just 2 episodes later? I always speculated that one of them would die. And as I said in my last video, I thought it would be Hyunju, because her character arc had come full circle. She was the MVP of the rebellion, and showed incredible skill during the hide-and-seek game. The irony of her dying there was actually powerful. Her character was strong, purposeful, and her death felt earned. Even with that leaked interview, her death still hit emotionally, especially when we saw who killed her. I have no complaints there. In fact, I actually liked what Hwang did with her story. The real problem is what he did with Daeho. His character had so much buildup, so much tension and mystery that the entire fanbase was split in two about him. But the answer we got, it was just disappointing. Why spend so much time building up the suspense only to wrap it all up in 2 lines? I get that Daeho was meant to serve as an example of Gi-hun's broken moral compass, but the character had so much potential. It could have been handled so much better. As for player 149 killing her own son, that genuinely caught me off guard. I never would have expected that, not in a million years. And honestly, I still don't know how to feel about it. Killing your own child just to save a random woman seems extremely extreme, but I can't deny the shock factor was real. Hwang also promised he wouldn't recycle the same motifs from season 1, but then he went and did exactly that with Gyumja's death. It wasn't even surprising, it was just bitterly disappointing. The mother and son duo gave off the exact same vibe as the husband and wife players from season 1, and they ended the same way. Despite Hwang's interviews saying he wouldn't repeat the same themes, that's exactly what he did. Another big disappointment came from the VIPs. The so-called masterminds behind the game felt like a bunch of clowns. I don't know if it was their voice tone or the acting, but all of their lines were mediocre at best. Compared to the VIPs from season 1, these ones lacked presence, lacked the aura of people who are supposed to be powerful and untouchable. At least that's how it felt to me while watching. I wasn't looking at some of the most influential people in the world. It felt more like watching a group of kids wearing Fortnite skins, reacting to a Twitch stream. And what was with all those random side characters reaching the finale? You kill off most of the main cast during the 4th game, only to let a bunch of no-names show up in the final one? In the 5th game, we only had 2 major deaths. Junhee, which we all expected, and Namgyu, which was also kind of predictable. The glass bridge in season 1 was a masterpiece. You can't even compare it to this 5th game. The only slightly interesting moment was 096, pushing other players while they were trying to cross. That's it. I have so many complaints about this game, but I'll save those for a separate video. For now, I'll just say I was disappointed. This was the penultimate game, and all the players had to do was jump over a rope. No twist, no psychological tension, nothing. And to top it off, 8 players survived? Really? And don't even get me started on Gi-hun. You already know my opinion about his ridiculous plot armor, but now you're pulling the same thing with a baby? Come on. The problem with throwing in all these extra characters for the final game is that we're not connected to them. Their deaths meant absolutely nothing. The only one who had any real screen time was player 100, and honestly, I'm shocked he made it that far. Now regarding the final vote, I understand why they made the baby player 2-2-2, to manipulate emotions and stir conflict. I'm in no position to judge the players' reactions, because the mental stress they were under must have been unimaginable. You survive a deadly competition, only to find out you're splitting the prize with a newborn? Yeah, that would piss me off too. I don't remember if they ever mentioned the other player's exact debt, but even with the baby counted as a full player, they'd still walk away with around 5 billion each. Isn't that still a life-changing amount? Why risk your life all over again? Then again, this could be debated. Their actions, while frustrating, are understandable, and as Inho predicted, it's human nature. We won't dive too deep into that for now. This video is just an overall opinion piece. Now, about the big Inho reveal and that conversation at the end. I have only one question. What in the world was that? Are you mocking us? This was supposed to be the biggest reveal in the entire Squid Game saga, and that's all we got. Hwang said the actor gave an impeccable performance, and that this scene would be one of the best we've seen on television. Seriously? I was expecting so much more than that. To be honest, I actually liked the idea behind the final game. I had visualized something similar myself, and I truly believe this game represents the very essence of human nature. We saw players turning on each other, beating a fellow contestant to make him the scapegoat. We saw despair, fear, and the deep terror of being betrayed. And honestly, all my respect goes to player 039. His choice to take his own life in the end and throw it right in Mayungi's face was powerful. That was one of the few truly impactful moments in the finale. The only real problem I had here was with Gi-hun's character and his actions during the game. There's just no way those were the actions of a main character. It felt more like he was an NPC. He just sat there with the baby, scowling at everyone. The second big issue was Myunggi's complete character breakdown. Another character with so much potential, completely wasted. He He was portrayed as this calculated, intelligent guy, and then he just flops at the end. Why didn't he wait to attack the other players once they reached the final stage? Why didn't he wait until the bridge was fully withdrawn before going after the baby? Or why didn't anyone press the button right after reaching the platform? And let's talk about that final knife fight. It felt like a recycled version of the Season 1 finale. We all said it. Ma Young-gi was clearly this season's Song-woo. That parallel was even more obvious in the last fight. This time, Gi-hun was the one wrapping his vest around his arm, while Myung-gi had the knife. It was a direct callback, and honestly, it lacked originality. As for the baby winning the Squid Game, I don't actually have a problem with that. I understand the symbolism. Life born from death, hope triumphing over despair. Gi-hun sacrificing himself reinforced that idea. The system ended with him. He didn't follow in In-ho's footsteps. He didn't become what he hated. That's the moment In-ho realized he had lost. It was poetic. Gi-hun won in the end, even if it meant dying. But the problem is that the final game was played with too many random characters. Just imagine if we had Gyumja, Young-sik, Hyunju, Namgyu, Myung-gi, Junhee, and Gi-hun in that final match. We knew their backstories, we cared about them, and their actions would have carried weight. Instead, they killed most of the core characters during the fourth game, leaving the rest of the series to be filled with people we didn't really care about. Everything felt rushed, and that's saying a lot, considering this season had 13 episodes. Nothing had enough consistency or depth to really make us feel invested. None of the characters' stories were explored deeply enough. It all felt surface level. Now let's talk about Junho the Explorer. What can I even say about this subplot? Junho and In-ho were supposed to be one of the biggest unresolved storylines from Season 1, and yet it was all wrapped up in 1 minute. We didn't even get a proper conversation between them. We waited so long for this. I don't even have the words to describe my disappointment. It literally took him 6 episodes just to find the island. The only 2 characters that truly stood out to me were Choi Woo-seok. Man, he was the real MVP, and No Yul. I really liked her final scene. Just when she was ready to give up, she saw Gi-hun's sacrifice and realized there was still hope. That moment actually hit. As for the ending, I don't even know if I'd call it a fitting one. I always expected that the games wouldn't truly end, and I never believed the VIPs would face any real consequences. But the way the final scene played out felt like one giant ad for the upcoming American spin-off. And the biggest question I have is, why would they be playing Dodokji in the US? Despite all the promises, they failed to deliver on so many things. There was so much potential left unexplored. The parts that needed more depth were rushed, and the parts that should have been quick, like Junho finding the island, were stretched out way too long. In total, I was really disappointed with this season's finale. I had such high expectations. But I'm not done yet. I'll keep analyzing Squid Game and posting videos through September, just like I promised. I'll be diving deeper into every topic. This video was just my first impression of the finale.